Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Quranic Connection TV, where we are going to answer the question, what is the Qadr of Allah? And ultimately, do you really have a choice in your life? Because what you hear much of the time now is that when something is going wrong in someone's life, the first thing that they will say is that, oh, it's the Qadr of Allah. So you just got to accept it. And the truth is, there's two sides to this. One side of it means that they are correct. It is the Qadr of Allah. But the other thing is that they're incorrect. You don't just have to accept it, because what it means when we say it's the Qadr of Allah is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Alim. Al-Alim, His knowledge is all-encompassing, meaning that knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has there is no limit to it. It's not like you and I. We are part of the creation and our intellect and our knowledge base is limited. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator, and He has knowledge of everything from before our existence to during our existence to after our existence. What does that mean? That means that Allah knew everything before it happened, and Allah knows everything before it will happen. So the fact is, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the pen to write everything that will ever happen, Allah commanded the pen to write down His knowledge, Azza wa Jal. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preserved in the Lawh al-Mahfuz, which is the preserved tablet, His knowledge. So in the preserved tablet, you have written in there every decision and thing that you and I will ever do in our lives. But does that mean that you don't have free will or freedom of choice? Are you not able to, these decisions that we make day to day, do we really have no control over it? And that's a very important question, because there is no conflict between you making a decision and having free will and the fact that Allah knew that you would make that decision. You see, that's when we say Qadr of Allah, what that really means is that Allah knew before you made the decision that you would make that decision, because He is your creator. So what does it mean to you and I on a day-to-day basis? Does that mean that we don't have choices in our lives? Can we just put everything negative down to the Qadr of Allah? And the truth is, most of the time, we have a choice in the matter. We have decisions that we make throughout our lives, and those decisions, they have consequences, good or bad. So if you make a decision today, there will be the fruits of that decision or the consequences of that decision. So when we say when something happens, it is the Qadr of Allah. Allah decreed that this would happen. Allah knew you would make that decision, and Allah knew that these things would be the consequences of your decisions. And so it has been written and preserved in the Lawh al-Mahfuz, the preserved tablet. Now, does that mean that you go through life thinking that Allah is in control of everything and you should do nothing? No, absolutely not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says right at the beginning of the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, بَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Allah says, give glad tidings, give good news to those who believe, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and they do good deeds, they do righteous actions, they take the right steps. You see, that's what it's all about. Qadr of Allah is all about you making decisions and taking the right steps. And how do you know whether you're making right decisions or not? If your decisions are in accordance to those things that Allah is pleased with, then you are making the right decisions. If, on the other hand, your decisions that you're making on a day-to-day basis are always in the disobedience of Allah, and Allah is always likely to be unhappy with you because of what you've done, this is constant disobedience, then you're making all the wrong decisions. And can you say that's the Qadr of Allah? Well, yes, it's the Qadr of Allah that you made that decision, and yes, it's also going to be the Qadr of Allah that the consequence of your decision is going to be whatever comes of it. Now, on the Day of Judgment, of course, those things that we decide on and those things that we do will determine whether we go to paradise or we go to Jahannam, hellfire. Now, what you decide on and what you do now will determine whether you go to Jannah or Jahannam. Like that's your decision. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the freedom to choose what you want. Allah has given you the freedom to make the choices that will shape your destiny. That's what it's all about. You see, your destiny is shaped by the decisions that you make. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this religion a religion of freedom, a freedom of choice, freedom of making your own decisions. And in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in ayat, verse 256, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي. لا إكراه في الدين, like there is no compulsion. You will not be forced in this religion. So imagine that. The most important decision in your life, the most important choice in your life, whether you follow the guidance or you don't follow the guidance, whether you are obedient to Allah or you don't, whether you accept and acknowledge Allah as your creator or you absolutely reject Allah, Allah has said there is no compulsion. You can't be forced. It is your free choice to decide on whether you want to acknowledge and accept Allah as your creator or whether you want to reject. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قَدْ تَبَيَّنَ الرُّشْدُ مِنَ الْغَيِّ. Like the clear path and the path of misguidance has been made absolutely clear. So when you make a choice on information that you have. And the information about the right path and the wrong path is clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed this book to make it clear. Allah revealed the Quran and the Sunnah to make it clear. So when we make a choice in life, the consequences of those choices are that you will reap the fruits of whatever you decide and whatever you do. You see, look at that. So important. Like a decision about like life and death, you know, in the hereafter, like whether you go to paradise or whether you go to the hellfire. Allah has left that up to you. La ikraha fid din. Allah says this categorically. Like, what does this mean exactly? It means that your acceptance of the religion. Like, if you don't accept it, Allah's not going to force you. And as a result of that, we know that historically that it has, like, the propaganda that was spread against Islam, that Islam was spread by the sword, it was never spread by the sword. It is impossible because Allah, the creator of the heavens and the earth, the one who established this religion, had made it haram, impermissible for us to force other people into the faith. It is a faith or it is a religion of choice. So whoever chooses to enter it can enter it. And that is the ultimate truth about Islam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He gives you freedom of choice for the most important decision in your existence, then what about all the lesser decisions that you make in your life? Like, Allah has given you absolute freedom. And so the Qadr of Allah literally means that Allah knows every decision that you will ever make. Allah knows every action that you will ever make. And as a result of that, it was pre-written. It has been recorded. And this is what we call predestination. It was destined that you would do these things. Why? Because Allah knew that you would make those choices. So life is all about the choices you make. You can change your future by changing the decisions that you make today. The choices and decisions that we make on our day-to-day lives absolutely shape our future. You see, it doesn't just shape, you know, when you're in college and school, like they're teaching you that your decisions that you make about the subjects that you study will determine your future. But it's, as much as that's true, the decisions that you make and the things that you learn about and the actions that you take in your life will absolutely shape your life and your hereafter. And the hereafter, as we know, is eternal. So you have the opportunity to shape your hereafter. You have the opportunity to choose what you want in the hereafter. Do you want the highest paradise? Because look, the Prophet ﷺ, he advised us that we should seek the highest level of paradise. He didn't say like seek any level of paradise. He said seek out Jannat al-Firdaus al-A'la, the highest level. Why? Because even if you didn't attain it for whatever reason, you would get close to that. And if you make that your goal and you take the steps towards that, you make the decisions and take the actions towards that, then inshallah ta'ala you will get exactly that. So what happens if you make bad decisions in your life? If you make bad decisions in your life, then you will reap bad fruits. If you look at the ayah of Bani Israel, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِذْ وَعَدْنَا مُوسَى أَرْبَعِينَ لَيْلَةً ثُمَّ اتَّخَذْتُمُ الْعِجْلَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here, talking about Bani Israel, like Allah made or saved Bani Israel from Fir'aun, the greatest oppressor, saved them. And then Musa alayhi salam, he went to his meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and at that time, while he was away, Bani Israel, they followed Samiri. They followed Samiri, who was one of them, who then took their gold and he produced a golden calf, and they began to worship this. And Allah made this a choice for them, and made this also a trial for them, because Allah gave them the freedom after they had been enslaved. Allah gave them the freedom to make the decisions that they wanted to, and they chose. Many of them chose that they would worship other than Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about shirk, about associating partners, about worshipping other than Allah. Allah says about this, Inna shirka la dhulmun azim. Indeed, like associating partners of Allah, worshipping other than Allah, is the greatest oppression. And so who did they oppress? Did they oppress Allah? La. They oppressed themselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about this that these people, they took the calf, the golden calf, as a god, and as a result of that, they oppressed themselves. They had previously been oppressed by Fir'aun, but now when they were given the choice and the freedom, they made the wrong choices. So what's the consequences of that? They were punished. They were punished a severe punishment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the punishment a direct, like cause and effect. The cause was their decision and their actions, and the effects was the punishment that they got. Now, as a result of this, like, what does that mean? That means that any bad decisions that we make, like, we could find ourselves in a situation where we're reaping like negative rewards from this. Like, we're not happy with the things that is happening in our lives. If you look at your life right now, or you look at your life at any point, you will find that there's always a direct correlation between a choice you made at some point in your life and what's happening right now. You see, what's happening right now, whether it's good or it's bad, if you can take this back and root it out to some choices that you made, or one choice that you made at some point in your life. And had you made a different choice, then what you're experiencing today would be very different. And the same way, if you make the right choices now or the wrong choices now, then the fruits that you will reap in the future will be either right or wrong, meaning good or bad, ones that you're happy with or ones that you're unhappy with. And ultimately, like, you have the ability. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, La ikraha fid din. Why? Because Allah is not going to force you. Allah is telling you that you have the choice. If you want paradise, all you have to do is make the choice, make the right decisions, and take the steps. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says right at the beginning, Bashiril ladina amanu wa amilu salihat. Like, give glad tidings to the believers that if they believe and they take action, wa amilu salihat, they do the work that's required. If you do that and you're taking the steps towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you cannot lose. And of course, like, top it off by, if you're unsure and you're worried, am I making the right decision? As long as it's in line with the Quran and the Sunnah, then top it off with the Salatul Istikhara. Like, make dua for guidance. And if you're making dua for guidance, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never let you down, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Huwa al-Mujib, He is the one that answers the dua. So inshallah, I'm going to leave you with the one question. Are you making the right decisions? Are you making the right choices? Or are you blaming others for what's happening in your life? You can change this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the freedom and the ability. That intellect, it's all about making the right decisions, and obviously your limbs are for taking actions, and inshallah, like, you can do this. There's no doubt about this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Kuntum khayra ummatin, you are the best of the nations. Like, all you have to do is make the right decisions, take the action, and inshallah ta'ala, like, we'll do this together. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.